We've all been hearing about Red Bull's chase for the 7-time IndyCar race winner Colton Herta, but if you want to make the switch to Formula One, everybody knows you need a super license. Tough luck, because with just 8 points to spare, FIA officially rejected his F1 super license request, after which Red Bull moved on to other options. So who do you think they're considering to replace their potential choice? Let's find out. First off, Herta doesn't seem to have enough points for a super license. Now, we've all seen how Red Bull was considering placing the IndyCar race winner Herta into a race seat at the sister team, AlphaTauri, and this was all part of a deal where Pierre Gasly would eventually switch to Alpine. Plus, let's keep in mind that Herta finished 3rd in 2020 and 5th in the 2021 IndyCar Championship. In fact, after winning 7 races, luck still doesn't seem to be on his side, because he still doesn't have enough points to get himself a super license. He needs at least 40 super license points, and for now, he's only got 32 under his belt. And as we all know, you can't race in F1 without it. Now, when we're talking about Red Bull, the team had their hopes up for the highly rated 22-year-old, thinking he'd be granted the special dispensation so he could somehow make his F1 debut next year. Sadly, a scenario like that seems unlikely. Just last week, the FIA put the final nail in when they confirmed on Friday evening that Herta's not going to get his super license, at least for now. As a matter of fact, they also released a statement saying that the FIA confirms that every inquiry was made through the right channels, and that led to their final decision that Herta just doesn't have the required number of points to cut it. Adding to that, it read, "The FIA continuously reviews its regulations and procedures, including with respect to super license eligibility, with the main factors being considered with respect to this topic being safety, experience, and performance in the context of the pathway." Following up, arguments came up about Herta's dispensation. Despite the FIA decision, his race-winning form in IndyCar and massive success in other series had Red Bull feel he had what it took to race in F1 in terms of skills and experience. In fact, many argued that he deserved dispensation, saying his final season in Indy Lights would have given him the necessary points for his super license if the championship had a bigger entry, and frankly, that wasn't in the driver's control anyway. At the same time, there's definitely some unease from other F1 teams about how things would seem for junior categories if Herta was granted an exemption. Clearly, soon enough, the matter became hugely political. In fact, Ferrari team principal Mattia Binotto stepped in at the Italian Grand Prix. He said that force majeure really couldn't be used for Herta because that would be the wrong approach. You've got regulations in place to protect the sport and make sure everyone's going through the right process and making the right choices for the sport itself. And needless to say, those comments soon enough prompted a response from the FIA, saying that they're not going to bow to external pressures for any decision they may take, especially when it comes to matters such as super license points. The FIA president has implemented robust governance, and everyone's gonna abide by that. And right in the middle of growing indications, even before the final decision came in, Red Bull started to step away from the chase of Herta for now. Coming up, it didn't take long for Red Bull to move on to other options. Despite the ambitious deal between the driver and team, which both parties were absolutely ready to commit to, the FIA decision came in at a pretty bad time. With that said, you're probably gonna see Herta move on to the final year of his contract with Andretti back in IndyCar next season. But who knows? He might be back in 2024 with just enough points this time. As for now, the 7-time IndyCar race winner says he wasn't surprised by the FIA's decision because they wouldn't want to piss off all the other F1 teams just for one person's benefit. At the end of the day, it's the FIA's decision, and you just gotta accept it. Having said that, Red Bull moved on quick enough from the prospect of signing the IndyCar driver. In fact, the team's already looking at other options right now, and Nick de Vries seems to have made it to the top, especially after his super sub outing for Williams at the Italian Grand Prix. As for Gasly, who's under contract for 2023, he's gonna stick around at AlphaTauri if Red Bull can't find a good replacement until then. On the other hand, the Frenchman seemed to be on the verge of making the switch to Alpine, where he's gonna be partnering up with his compatriot Esteban Ocon. Having said that, at least one of the seats at AlphaTauri is confirmed with the team's announcement last week. It turns out they've extended Yuki Tsunoda's contract until the end of 2023. Up next, Red Bull is set to steal Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes understudy. That's right, folks, they've got their eyes on Nick de Vries, who's probably going to be the one to replace Herta and partner up with Tsunoda at AlphaTauri for 2023 at the Japanese Grand Prix. And while we're talking about it, the Dutchman seems to be the subject of a tug-of-war between 3 teams right now, but it seems like Red Bull's won the race to sign him. Not to mention, the deal's going to be a hammer blow to Mercedes in the process. Now, it's no surprise that de Vries was pretty impressive on his F1 debut with Williams at the Italian Grand Prix, right after he replaced Alex Albon, who underwent surgery for appendicitis. In fact, having driven for Aston Martin in FP1, he was drafted at the very last minute to deputize for Williams for FP3, qualifying, and of course, the race in Italy. Surprisingly, despite having little practice in the 2022 cars other than his simulation work or so, he managed to finish in the 9th position. Not only that, but he also secured 2 points and beat his teammate Nicholas Latifi and even triggered a chase between several teams, including Alpine and Williams. So it's understandable why these teams want him racing for them in the next season. Right now, he's the backup to Hamilton, yet he was spotted talking to the special advisor Helmut Marko in Austria right after his impressive display in Monza. If anything, it fueled speculation about whether or not the 2019 Formula 2 champion would turn his back on Mercedes. Not to mention, if de Vries signs the deal with Red Bull, Gasly can move to Alpine. As for now, de Vries' move to join AlphaTauri is overhanging, but if things go as expected, it's gonna give Gasly the green light to seal his move to Alpine and finally end his long-running association with Red Bull as a contracted driver. With that, he'd move on to fill up the seat left vacant by both Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri, and that'll get him to partner up with Ocon in the all-French lineup on what's expected to be one hell of a lucrative multi-year contract. Clearly, this decision's got the pressure of a lot of other pending decisions. Now, just last month, de Vries confirmed that he'd been in talks with Red Bull Supremo Marko about driving for AlphaTauri. At the same time, he admitted that a move to Williams would have been the obvious step right after making a debut for them. The same debut that impressed a bunch of other teams and brought him some pretty great offers, because a lot of influential people have their eyes on him now. As for now, he's not too sure if he's in the luxury situation to make a choice. Instead, it largely feels beyond his control. He's been in talks with Williams for a pretty long time, but it wasn't until last month that he was able to make his debut there, especially after a medical emergency with Albon. Finally, the Red Bull advisor expects a clear situation at AlphaTauri by the end of 2022. Helmut Marko's giving hope that the whole ambiguity around Nick de Vries and Pierre Gasly will hopefully be sorted by the end of the 2022 F1 Japanese GP. And even though AlphaTauri and the Formula E champion may have agreed on terms, they can't make it official until Gasly's move to Alpine is confirmed. Hopefully in the upcoming weekend, fans are going to get a clear picture of who's coming or not to AlphaTauri. Adding to that, Marko said that despite the rumors and with everything going on, Gasly's still under contract with Red Bull Racing, so that hasn't changed. And unless that changes, there's absolutely nothing to say about possible successors. And since his contract isn't up until the end of 2023, Red Bull's sister team is gonna need the fee from Alpine first before they let Gasly go. It's only a matter of time before we find out what happens. That's a wrap for this video. What's your take on Colton Herta's replacement in Red Bull? Do you think the team should consider drivers other than Nick de Vries? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.